Before you trust the next blood pressure number that flashes on your home monitor, I need you to stop for one moment, and listen very carefully, because that number may not be telling you the truth. It may be scaring you when you're actually fine. Or worse, it may be calming you down when your heart, your brain, and your blood vessels are in real danger. I've seen seniors rush to the emergency room over readings that were never truly high, and I've seen others stay home, convinced everything looked normal, only to arrive later with a stroke, chest pain, or a dangerous medication problem that could have been prevented. I'm Dr. Michael Joel, and today we are going to talk about one of the most misunderstood things in home healthcare, how you actually measure your own blood pressure. Please subscribe today for doctor-guided health tips that protect your heart, support independence, help your family, and keep you informed. If you are over 60, this matters more than most people realize, because blood pressure is not just a number. It is one of the strongest warning signs we have for stroke, heart attack, kidney decline, dizziness, falls, memory problems, and even loss of independence. And if you're measuring it the wrong way, you may be making life decisions based on bad information. What makes this so dangerous, is that a home monitor almost always gives you a number, even when your technique is terrible. It doesn't pop up and say, "Sorry, that reading was nonsense." It just gives you an official-looking result, and that result can change medications, create panic, or give false reassurance. That's why so many people think the machine is the issue. Most of the time, the machine is not the real problem. The real problem is everything happening around the machine: your posture, your timing, your clothing, your cuff size, your arm position, your conversation, your stress, even whether or not you went to the bathroom first. By the end of this video, you're going to know the 11 most common blood pressure mistakes seniors make at home. But more importantly, you're going to understand which one is the most common, which one is the most deceptive, and which one quietly throws off readings so often that it can change treatment decisions. And I want you to stay with me all the way to the end, because mistake number 1 is the one I see most often in real life. It looks harmless, it feels harmless, yet it may be the single biggest reason people think their blood pressure is out of control, when the real issue is how they measured it. Let's begin with mistake number 11, because this one starts before the cuff even goes on your arm. It's using the wrong kind of device, or trusting a device that has never been checked. I want to tell you about Leonard from Phoenix, Arizona. Leonard was 72, proud of the fact that he monitored his blood pressure every day. He showed me readings that bounced all over the place: 118 one day, 162 the next, 129 that evening, then 155 the following morning. He swore he was doing everything right. And when I asked what device he was using, he pulled out a wrist monitor he bought at a discount store because it was small and easy to travel with. Now, wrist monitors are tempting. They feel convenient, they feel modern, and for seniors with shoulder pain or larger upper arms, they seem easier to manage. But here's the problem. Wrist readings are much more sensitive to position. If the wrist is not exactly at heart level, the number can drift. If the angle changes, the number can drift. If the device itself was never properly validated, you may be relying on a machine that simply isn't dependable. Leonard's upper arm reading in the office was stable and consistent. His wrist reading at home was chaos. So, mistake number 11 is this: don't assume every monitor is equally trustworthy just because it turns on and gives you numbers. Use an upper arm monitor whenever possible. Make sure the cuff actually fits your arm, and bring your monitor to a doctor's appointment at least occasionally so it can be compared with office equipment. That one habit can save you months or years of confusion. And I want you to notice something already. Leonard wasn't careless. He was trying to be responsible. That's what makes these mistakes so dangerous. Good people with good intentions can still collect terrible data, and that terrible data can lead to medication changes, fear, and a false story about what's happening inside your body. Mistake number 10 is taking your blood pressure too soon after coffee, cigarettes, exercise, alcohol, or even a hot shower. And this is one of the most common morning errors in America. Let me tell you about Patricia from Columbus, Ohio. Every morning she would wake up, pour a big mug of coffee, walk out to the mailbox, come back in, feed the dog, then sit down and check her pressure. Her readings were always higher in the morning than later in the day. She became convinced she was entering some dangerous new phase of hypertension. She started the day anxious, and that anxiety stayed with her until lunch. But Patricia wasn't measuring resting blood pressure. She was measuring activated blood pressure. Coffee can stimulate the system. Nicotine can tighten blood vessels. Exercise, even light walking, temporarily increases circulation demands. A hot shower can shift vascular tone. Alcohol from the night before can also affect morning readings for some people. So if you measure too soon after any of those, you're not seeing your true baseline. You're seeing your body in transition. That number may still be real in the moment, but it's not the number your doctor is usually trying to compare over time when deciding whether treatment is working. That's why the rule is so important. No caffeine, no smoking, no exercise, and ideally no alcohol right before a reading. Give your body a calm window. If you want the truth, you have to stop testing your blood pressure while your body is still reacting to something. Patricia changed one thing. She measured before coffee, after she had fully settled, and at a consistent morning time. Suddenly, her scary 154/92 turned into a far more believable 131/79. Same woman, same house, same machine, completely different conclusion. That's how powerful timing can be. Mistake number 9 is measuring with a full bladder. And if that sounds almost too silly to matter, I want you to stay with me because this one shocks people. Charles from Des Moines, Iowa was 76, and he had a strict morning routine. He'd wake up, sit on the edge of the bed, strap on the cuff, and measure before heading to the bathroom. Why? Because he wanted to catch his blood pressure first thing. His readings had crept upward over several months, and he was worried he needed stronger medication. He was also feeling lightheaded later in the day, which made the situation even more confusing. What Charles didn't realize, is that a full bladder can push blood pressure upward, not by a tiny amount either. In some people, it can be a very meaningful jump. When the bladder is full, the body experiences physical and nervous system stress. Your body is basically saying, take care of this now. That alone can nudge the numbers higher. So if you are measuring before using the bathroom, you may be testing yourself under an avoidable pressure load. Charles started emptying his bladder first, then resting quietly, then taking the reading. His numbers settled down immediately, and the mystery disappeared. I want you to really hear that, because seniors often work hard to build routines. And routines are good, but if one step in the routine is flawed, you can faithfully repeat the same error every single day. A bad routine is more dangerous than a random mistake because it creates a false pattern. It convinces you the reading is reliable simply because you're consistent. So mistake number 9 is simple. Go to the bathroom first. It takes a minute, it costs nothing, and it may keep you from thinking your blood pressure has worsened when what really changed was, your timing. Mistake number 8 is talking, moving, watching upsetting television, or answering the phone while the cuff is inflating. And this mistake is everywhere. I saw it with Denise from Tampa, Florida. Denise loved checking her pressure while the local morning news was on. She thought it was efficient. She'd sit down in her recliner, hear about storms, crime, politics, and rising prices. Then the monitor would start squeezing her arm while she commented out loud to the television. Some mornings she'd even answer a call from her sister halfway through the reading. She could not understand why her numbers felt so unpredictable, especially when she wasn't doing anything strenuous. But blood pressure measurement is a quiet test, not a multitasking test. Talking changes breathing, moving changes muscle tension, Emotional reactions, even mild ones, shift nervous system activity. If the cuff is trying to capture a delicate pressure signal while your chest, throat, shoulders, and arm are all subtly engaged, accuracy goes down. And here's the cruel part. The monitor still gives a neat, official number. Denise's readings looked like data, but they were really mixed signals. When she began measuring in a silent room with the television off and her phone face down, her so-called unpredictable hypertension suddenly looked a lot more stable. This is also where the emotional trap begins. A high reading can scare you. Then you recheck immediately while you're upset. Then it rises again. Then you worry even more. Suddenly the act of measuring becomes the thing driving the number up. So, mistake number 8 is not just talking or moving. It's treating blood pressure measurement like a casual background task instead of a medical procedure. For those few minutes, create stillness. No phone, no TV, no conversation, no reacting to headlines, just quiet. If you want a number you can trust, you have to give your body and the device a clean chance to do their jobs. Mistake number 7 is sitting the wrong way. And almost nobody thinks posture matters as much as it does. Let me tell you about Gloria from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Gloria always checked her blood pressure in her favorite kitchen chair, but she liked to cross her legs at the knee, tuck one foot underneath the other, and lean forward a little because the table felt too high. Comfortable? Absolutely. Correct? Not even close. Her readings ran surprisingly high at home, higher than the ones she got at her clinic. She blamed the clinic for rushing. Then she blamed stress. Then she blamed age. But the real issue was the position she called normal. When your legs are crossed, when your feet are not flat, when your back is unsupported. You change how hard your cardiovascular system has to work in that moment. The body is not a statue. Position changes pressure. Leaning forward can tense muscles. Dangling feet can alter posture. No back support means you're holding yourself up instead of resting. That matters. Gloria switched to a straight-backed dining chair, sat with both feet flat on the floor, let her back rest fully, and kept her legs uncrossed. Her blood pressure didn't magically become perfect, but it dropped enough to show that posture had been adding false drama to her readings. What I want you to notice, is that none of these mistakes feel dramatic. Nobody says, "Today I'm going to sabotage my blood pressure reading by crossing my legs." No. People do what feels natural. That's why this matters so much for seniors at home. Your living room is not a medical office. Your recliner is not a clinic chair. Your body position may be cozy, but cozy and accurate are not always the same thing. Mistake number 7 is failing to sit in a stable, supported posture. Back supported, feet flat, legs uncrossed, shoulders relaxed. It sounds small. It isn't. Mistake number 6 is letting the arm hang too low, holding it too high, or failing to support it at all. And this one can change readings fast. Raymond from Nashville, Tennessee, always checked his blood pressure sitting on the sofa with the cuffed arm resting down on his lap. It felt easy. He could see the screen, but his numbers at home were consistently 15 to 20 points higher than what his cardiologist got in the office. He thought the office must be wrong because home is real life. Then I had him repeat the reading with his arm supported on a pillow, so the cuff sat right at heart level. The difference was immediate. Gravity matters, whether we think about it or not. If your arm is below heart level, the reading can look falsely higher. If it's held above heart level, it can look falsely lower. And if you're using your own muscles to hold the arm in place, instead of resting it on a table or pillow, that muscle tension can interfere too. Raymond wasn't measuring bad blood pressure. He was measuring bad arm physics. Once he supported the arm correctly, his numbers began matching the clinical picture. That saved him from an unnecessary medication increase that could have caused dizziness and falls. So mistake number 6 is poor arm positioning. And I want to make this visual for you. Sit down. Rest your arm on a table, counter, or firm pillow. Let the upper arm relax. Place the cuff so the center of it is level with your heart. not your stomach, not your shoulder. If you need to build up height with a folded blanket, do it. If the chair is too low, change chairs. This is one of those technical details that sounds picky until you see how much it changes the number. Then it stops feeling picky and starts feeling, essential. Mistake number 5 is never checking both arms in the beginning. And I wish more seniors knew about this one. Eleanor from Richmond, Virginia had been checking only her left arm for years because it was easier. Her readings looked normal and she felt reassured. During a routine office visit, though, her clinician checked both arms and found a much higher number on the right. Not a tiny difference, a meaningful difference. That led to further evaluation and a clearer understanding of her vascular health. Had she continued checking only the lower reading arm forever, she might have stayed falsely reassured, while an important warning sign stayed hidden. Now, I'm not saying you need to keep bouncing back and forth between arms every day forever. That would just create more confusion. But when you first begin home monitoring, or if you haven't checked both arms in a long time, it's wise to compare them. If one arm consistently reads higher, that's usually the arm you keep using for future measurements, so your readings remain consistent and you don't miss the higher side. Seniors often ask me, does it really matter if there's a small difference? A tiny difference may not matter much. A clear, repeatable difference absolutely can matter. What Eleanor's story teaches us, is that blood pressure isn't just about one machine squeezing one arm. It's about collecting the most meaningful information possible. If you unknowingly choose the arm that always reads lower, you may think treatment is working better than it is. If you switch arms randomly with no plan, your log becomes harder to interpret. So, mistake number 5 is ignoring the basic starting question of which arm should be used. Check both arms initially, then stay consistent. And if the difference is large or new, tell your doctor, because that is information worth knowing. Mistake number 4 is putting the cuff over clothing or over a bunched-up sleeve. And yes, this still causes trouble every single day. Marjorie from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania was careful in almost every other way. She sat quietly. She wrote everything down. She used the same time every morning, but she hated taking off layers in the winter, so she would either place the cuff over a thin, long-sleeve shirt or roll her sweater sleeve tightly above the cuff line. Her readings were always a little higher at home than at the clinic. Not crazy high, just high enough to create concern. That is exactly what makes this mistake so sneaky. A cuff needs direct contact with bare skin, not fabric. Even thin fabric can interfere, and a rolled sleeve can act like a tourniquet if it's tight enough, compressing tissue above the cuff and distorting the reading. Marjorie thought thin clothing couldn't possibly matter, but once she measured on a bare arm with the sleeve completely out of the way, her numbers improved. Not because her blood pressure changed, but because the reading stopped fighting through layers and pressure points. This is one of those mistakes people defend because it seems practical. It's only a shirt. It's only a sweater. But practical and accurate, are not always the same. So mistake number 4 is easy to fix, but only if you take it seriously. Measure on bare skin. Don't slide the cuff over a blouse, thermal shirt, cardigan, or pajama sleeve. Don't bunch fabric tightly above the cuff. If you need to, wear something loose enough to remove easily at measurement time. I know that sounds like a nuisance, especially on cold mornings. But compare that nuisance to being told your medication needs to be increased based on a bad technique error. Suddenly, taking off a sleeve doesn't sound like much of a burden, does it? Mistake number 3 is using the wrong cuff size. And this is one of the most powerful ways to distort a reading. Harold from Boise, Idaho had broad upper arms and used the standard cuff that came in the box because, well, that was the cuff he had. His home readings ran high for months. He became convinced his medications were failing. He felt exhausted, but he assumed that meant his blood pressure was still too high. In reality, he was being squeezed with a cuff that was too small for his arm. That tends to push readings upward. When he finally got the right cuff size, the numbers changed enough to completely alter the conversation. The opposite problem can happen too. A cuff that is too large may underestimate the reading in some situations. Either way, the message is the same. If the cuff doesn't fit, the number cannot be trusted. This is why arm circumference matters, not guesswork, not, "I think this looks about right," actual fit. Harold had spent months worrying about damage that was never happening, while also risking side effects from overtreatment. And I need you to understand how many seniors are in that exact position right now. They are not failing their blood pressure treatment. Their cuff is failing the measurement. So mistake number 3 is assuming the cuff that came with the monitor is automatically the right one for you, and that assumption can be very expensive. Read the cuff label. Measure your upper arm if you need to. Ask your pharmacist or doctor's office for help if you're unsure. A small correction here can change everything else. And notice what happens as these mistakes stack up. If you use a too small cuff over a shirt with your legs crossed right after coffee, you're not getting one bad reading. You're creating a perfect storm of error. That's why home numbers can look so dramatic, without actually reflecting your true resting pressure. Mistake number 2 is taking one single reading at one random time, then treating it like a verdict. And this is where so many blood pressure logs become useless. Susan from Cleveland, Ohio would check only when she felt worried. Maybe after a headache, maybe after a salty dinner, maybe after reading something scary online. She would take one number, stare at it, and decide whether the day was good or bad. No second reading, no consistency, no written pattern, just emotional snapshots. Her doctor could not tell if her blood pressure was truly uncontrolled, temporarily elevated, or simply being measured under wildly different conditions each time. One reading is just one moment, not a trend. Blood pressure naturally shifts throughout the day. That's normal. So if you take one measurement at random and give it enormous power, you may frighten yourself for no good reason. A much better approach is to measure at consistent times, usually morning and evening, and take at least 2 readings each session with a short pause in between. Often the first is a little higher, and the second is calmer. When Susan started doing that, a messy pattern turned into a usable one. Her doctor finally had something real to work with. And this is where logging matters. If you don't write down the readings, the time, and any relevant notes, memory will play tricks on you. Human beings remember the scary numbers better than the quiet, normal ones. We tell ourselves stories, we round things, we exaggerate patterns that may not exist. So mistake number 2 is not just taking a single reading, it's also failing to measure consistently and failing to keep a clean record. A proper log turns noise into information. Without that log, you and your doctor are trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. And some of the remaining pieces may belong to a different puzzle entirely. Now, we come to mistake number 1. The one I see more than any other, the one seniors underestimate, the one that quietly contaminates everything else. It is not resting quietly before you measure. Let me tell you about Walter from Sarasota, Florida. Walter would come in from the garage, set down groceries, answer a text from his daughter, sit at the kitchen table, and immediately wrap the cuff around his arm. He thought the machine would capture his real-life pressure that way. What it captured, over and over, was the pressure of a man who had not yet settled physically or mentally. His readings convinced him his blood pressure was spiraling. Your blood pressure is not a frozen number living inside you all day. It is a moving response to activity, posture, thought, noise, urgency, and stress. If you've just walked, talked, climbed stairs, unloaded bags, argued with someone, or even rushed because the phone was ringing, your system is not at rest. The purpose of home blood pressure monitoring is usually to measure a baseline resting value that can be compared over time. If you skip the resting period, the reading may reflect your recent activity more than your actual blood pressure control. Walter's alarming numbers dropped when he simply sat still and quiet for 5 full minutes first. I need to slow down here, because this is the mistake people brush off. They say, but I was only walking across the room. I was only feeding the cat. I was only hurrying in from the porch. That's exactly the problem. Seniors often imagine rest means recovering from intense exercise. No, rest means true stillness before the reading. No errands, no rushing, no television, no phone, no conversation. Just sit, breathe, let your body return to baseline. That one habit changes more readings than almost anything else I teach. And if you ignore it, every other improvement you make can still be undermined, from the very start. Now, let's put all of this together because information only helps if you can actually use it tomorrow morning. Here is the clean routine. First, choose a validated upper arm monitor with the correct cuff size. Second, pick a real chair, not a slouchy couch with your back supported and your feet flat. Third, empty your bladder. Fourth, make sure you have not just had coffee, cigarettes, exercise, alcohol, or a hot shower. Fifth, remove clothing from the upper arm completely. Sixth, rest quietly for at least 5 full minutes. Seventh, support your arm at heart level. Eighth, stay silent and still. Ninth, take at least 2 readings and record them. If you want to do this at a gold standard level, measure at the same times each day, usually in the morning before medications or breakfast, and again in the evening before dinner. Take 2 readings about a minute apart. Write them down. Use the same arm each time after you've figured out which arm is consistently higher, and don't let one isolated number ruin your entire day. Patterns matter more than one emotional moment. If a reading is unexpectedly high, sit quietly and repeat it rather than assuming disaster. That one pause can save you from panic and help you think like a clinician instead of reacting like, a frightened patient.